value or other reason of me wanting to keep this bigger than the logical reasons to get rid of this. So for example, I used to wear flannels like literally constantly throughout high school. I had about 7 flannels when I came home to my closet, and I was like, I have not worn any of these in at least 4 years. Why do I have them? And I think like 6 out of 7 of them, I was able to be like, girl, you're never going to wear this. It's okay to let it go. But it was a little hard because it almost felt like I'm letting go of like different versions of myself. And I know it's just a piece of clothing. I still have those memories. I still have the parts of myself that I deemed necessary to carry forward with me into my new phases of life. But it just felt very emotional to get rid of different things, whether it be these flannels or like something else. Like the flannels weren't that serious, but other things were a little more serious. You know, you kind of look at that and realize I'm still me, even if I don't have these things that I'm never going to wear, or this decoration that does not bring me joy anymore. And with that, I could look at the logical reasons to get rid of, once again, the flannels just as an example, as they're uncomfortable, they don't really fit me, I don't even really like how they look on me anymore, and I haven't worn them in at least 4 years. Those are astounding reasons to let them go. The only one that I did keep was because I could actually see myself wearing it, and it was actually comfortable, and I did actually like how I looked in it. So yeah, just finding that balance between figuring out what is worth getting rid of and what makes sense to keep. And I find having the space where I've put all of my like quote unquote ruthless belongings in that first fill swoop, a clean, like in a plastic bag or whatever bag, it doesn't matter. Having that time where maybe like wait a few days where you go through it all again and ask yourself why you put this in and all of the things I just mentioned. Having those few days where I can like sort of see what my life would look like without these belongings is really helpful, because it helps me solidify in my mind that yes, I am okay to let these things go. It is safe to do so. It is logical to do so. And they would be better in someone else's possession. And then the next thing I would say, like with all of this, that's definitely is important, is to then, once you've done this big declutter, to try your best to be intentional about the things that you're bringing into your space, because there's a reason your space got so overwhelming, or like in my case, like very cluttered. And to then, when you're shopping or whatever, to be super intentional about the things that you're bringing into your space, to know that you want to only have things that will really serve the life you're aiming to have, whatever that looks like for you, is really helpful. Because, for example, I impulsively bought a Our Place mini pot because it was at like TJ Maxx basically. And so it was literally half price. Online, it is double what I paid. So I was like, oh my God, I have to get it. It was what I thought was the perfect pink. I was so obsessed, and I was like, I need this. You're coming home with me. So I brought it home, I opened it, and it's orange. It's not pink. If you know, like the color Spice on their website, I will say it's a really pretty color, but it's not at all the color I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like a mauvey pink, which is my absolute favorite color. And no, it's like pumpkin spice orange type of vibe, which is a vibe. It's just not the vibe I was going for. I could get over the color. However, I just think for me personally, like it's not worth the money I spent despite it being half price. And so in that decision in buying it, I tried to be very intentional and be like, I have one ceramic pot that I really like, and it would be nice to have another one so that my whole pot like cookware set, because I already have pans that are like that, then my whole set is good for me, quote unquote, you know, like, or at least better for me. I don't know. Anyway. And I was also like, this color is to die for. This is exactly what I would buy on their website. But coming home and realizing, first of all, the color is not right. And second of all, realizing just how loud the lid is, which I cannot exaggerate this enough. Like, truly, for a pot lid, I feel like it is one of the louder ones I've heard. And then also, too, just knowing that, like, honestly, it's just a color. I know that's so, like, vain or whatever, but, like, if it's not and exactly what I wanted, I would much rather buy, like, a cheaper pot that is also ceramic and PFAS free and stuff, and, you know, like, does the same thing. So that was a long drawn out way of saying just making sure that what you bring into your home, it has intention behind it, and you're not gonna have that buyer's remorse in like 6 months or whatever and be like, why did I buy this? Because that traps you kind of into this difficulty of getting rid of things. And this really relates to this idea of there being a sunk cost with certain belongings that we purchase, especially things that we don't end up using in the way that we expected we would. We feel like we have to hang on to things because we spent X amount of money on it, and in order to get our money's worth, we gotta get our use out of it. But in reality, we're not using the thing anyway, and instead the pressure to keep things to try and recover this in response to the guilt we're feeling for not wearing or using something the way that we thought we would is taking a mental cost that really should be factored in. Guilt in this form in particular is quite a useless emotion. It won't change the fact that you purchased the item, and it won't change the fact that you didn't use it in the way you once thought you would. This is something that I really have had to learn, that giving yourself the grace to be okay with that and move on by giving it a new home is really important, because otherwise your stuff will stress you out even when you do have what I mentioned earlier being the perfect spot for everything in your possession. Because yeah, maybe your drawers are neat or your floors are clean, but at least for me, I still notice and feel the fact that there's clutter around and there's things that I'm hanging on to, and my space is essentially dragging me down in some way. A final tip I have, especially this applies if you have hyper empathy as well, or you also just struggle in general with knowing that your donations might not necessarily get to a second home. They might just end up in landfill, because I'm an environment major. I care about this stuff a lot, so I know that I think it's around 80% of things donated to secondhand stores end up in landfill, and it honestly really stresses me out. So this is a tip that I truly have found extremely helpful, which is to find a place to donate your items to that really aligns with your values as a person, and that you know will actually be given to people who will appreciate those things again. For me, I know like a local women's shelter, and I can donate that there, especially items that I would much prefer just go to someone who would love and appreciate them. For example, I recently donated a pair of high heels that were way too small. I wore them to my grade 8 graduation, and needless to say, I'm not in grade 8 anymore, so they do not fit. I donated them to the women's shelter instead of Goodwill, for example, and it helped me feel less bad about parting with them, because I have a bigger hope that somebody will get joy out of having them, and they'll bring someone else more joy than they would me just under my bed in a plastic bin. And also too, then a charity shop that's like one of those big brand ones, they don't have the opportunity to upsell it and charge like $30 for a pair of very old heels, no matter how good of a condition they still are in, when they really should not be doing that. Like, oh my God, that's a whole nother thing. So I'm not really sure if this episode has some sort of conclusion or not, but that's kind of all I have to say about that for now. Thank you so much for listening. If you decluttered while listening to this, good job. And if not, I encourage you to go out and at least find one thing that maybe, doesn't align with you anymore that you could donate or even give to a friend. Like, oh my God, clothing swaps are so fun. Having a clothing swap and having a friend or multiple friends where you can just kind of trade your clothes and, see like maybe they want something is really fun, because then you're also, instead of shopping and spending more money, you're just kind of shopping, but for free, which like who doesn't love that? So yeah, I encourage you to try to declutter one thing. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for listening. I love you lots. Remember, you are important, you are loved. And with that, I will talk to you guys next time.